Yeah, well, yeah. Oh, sorry. Excuse me. I'm excuse me. I'm adrenalized. I've just come back from training. You
That's
might
what I thought.
notice.
You just
Yeah,
finished. You just finished training.
yeah. I just finished jiu-jitsu. I was just chatting to my darling wife Annie. Let me just change this. For all the guys there, if you know what that T-shirt is, I'll be really impressed.
That is Conan O'Brien and somebody else.
No, McDonald's. Yeah, a moth walks.
Oh, okay.
A moth walks into a podiatrist's office. You know this one, don't you? It's
No.
the greatest joke ever told. If we have 5.5 minutes at the end, I'll tell you, it's the greatest. It's the greatest slow burn of all time. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Okay.
How's that? I'm looking all right there, aren't I?
Yeah, you look fine.
Oh,
I
perfect,
mean,
perfect. That's what.
when don't you, Mick? Huh? Huh?
That's where. That's the money maker right there, baby. The money maker right there. How are you anyway? All good?
Yeah. I discovered a couple hours ago during the I Love Jeet Kune broadcast that I forgot that when you're
Sorry,
recovering.
1 minute, right?
Yeah.
My darling wife Annie, you're now famous. She told me I was annoying. I came in through the door and she said that I was a whirlwind, didn't you, Annie?
Very annoying.
Very annoying. You might hear her. What was it, Annie? I will do after this podcast. Annie wanted to know if I'm eating my dinner. I will do after the podcast. Annie, love ya. All the guys say hello. Annie, we've been together 35 years. It's our 35th year together, 35
Yeah.
years married. And she still says when I go training, she calls it that silly fighting. And if it isn't silly fighting, she calls, oh, what's that, Annie? I wear karate suits, don't I? I don't wear a gi. I don't wear a BJJ gi. I wear a karate suit.
A karate
That's
suit.
what.
Yeah.
A karate suit.
Yeah.
So she said, I have too many karate suits. That's what she tells me.
It's
So
them
I
pajamas
sleep
thing.
them.
But I
Them
looked up.
pajamas.
I looked up. I looked up a picture of her, and I saw it was emblazoned Saint Annie. That's what it says.
She is indeed Saint Annie. She actually told me last week that I was a Neanderthal. So yeah, but yeah, she's ace. She's my favorite person. She's my favorite person in the whole world. I'm really lucky because some people get married to women and don't like them. Yeah, they love them, but they don't like them. And I've said in so many interviews, I'm one of those strange people that I actually really like my wife as a person. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I like it. I everything about her, apart from the silliness.
Wait, Nick,
Yeah,
talking about so many interviews. I'm confused. Is the Mick Tully show still a thing?
it is still a thing. So what it is, so mixed martial arts. That I did that with my dear friend Ant McGinley, and we were doing a lot of in person. This was way before COVID. Before that, Chinese guy at the bat, the hungry guy that turned the world upside down. Do you remember that? It was a couple of
Yeah,
years
I
ago.
remember that
You
guy.
may have missed it. So anyway, up until that point, all interviews I was doing them like I travel 100 miles, have a hour and a half conversation, and then drive back, and then obviously when Zoom kicked in, it changed a little bit. And the other one as well is like, all my they're still on Spotify and on iTunes and wherever good podcasts are available, as they say in the advert, right? So
Right there.
they've still got those. And then obviously I've got a lot of work. I still do a lot of work with Will Henshaw from Will Woma from Woma TV. So we've got a couple of good things coming up at the moment. Hopefully, I'm going to interview Zoltan Balthury. I don't know if you guys know who he is. So Zoltan is the bassist of Five Finger Death Punch, but he's also one of the main shareholders. I hope I've got this right. Professional Grappling League. It's going to be in Vegas. It's going to be a team event, and the captains are Roger Gracie, Eddie Bravo, Jeff Glover, which is always going to be fun because Jeff Glover's a character. And who is the other person? Geez, I can't believe it. I almost forgot. Henzo Gracie, the man himself, the legend that is. Yeah, so Henzo's one of those. So like Zoltan's a really interesting character because he's one of the greatest guitarists in the world. He's a legitimate martial artist. He's married to one of the Gracies. He's a black belt in judo, black belt in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I think he won the gold at the Masters. So he's a bit of a, imagine Tom Hardy with a guitar. So he's a legitimate guy who trains. You know, that's one of the things I was hoping me and you would talk about, where we've gone now from martial arts being a niche thing. Years ago, it was only dweebs and nerds, right? It's a bit like going to Comic-Con. Yeah, right. Me and you are old enough to know that we're old enough to remember trying to get a girlfriend to dress up like Supergirl or Power Girl or Wonder Woman. Like they didn't want to know. Now you've got like every girl on the planet's like, oh yeah, I'm into cosplay, and you're like, what? I was born in the wrong decade, you know. So, yeah. So I've got so we've got a couple of really good interviews coming back up, and Will's had like 2 knee replacements, so they're still going. But if you want to know the truth, Dwight, you'll know this from the JKD Rebel thing. It's a bit of a nightmare because you get a lot of support. And guys love it, but they don't realize, first of all, how much work is involved in it and the pressure. And then, some of us have stuff like lives as well. And I just found I was getting burnt out. And it was quite bizarre because people were like, oh, you're doing this rock and roll thing. It's amazing, isn't it? And I'm like, you only get to see the highlight reel. Yeah, you get to see me doing the cool stuff. It's the grind behind it you don't do. Yeah, so it's all good,
I just saw a mini Warmer interview with Michael Jai White.
Yeah. Well, Michael and his wife, I was supposed to do that interview, and the timing didn't really work out because they're both legitimate martial artists. And Michael's been a polarizing character in the JKD community because he was one of the guys that turned around and went, in a real fight, I'd take Bruce.
Yeah,
and
but Mick.
Yeah.
Why would that be polarizing? Why should it be polarizing?
Well, we're going straight in. As I said to you, anything you ask me, I'll tell you the truth. But that's my truth. Yeah, some of you guys on social media might not like this, but guess what? I come from a generation where it's just my opinion. It's nothing else. Let's not fall out about it. It's like years ago, we could talk about football, we could talk about sports, we could talk about politics, and still be friends. And nowadays, it seems like they're mutually exclusive now. You have an opinion or you have friends. You can't have both. So with Michael Jai White, why it's so polarizing, it's ridiculous. It's like Michael Jai White is a unit. He's in really, really good shape. And I think you'll know this. I'm going to be really honest here now, right? From the minute I met you, as I said before, the first time I ever met you, I was like, whoa, 2012, Duluth, Minnesota, and you came in and you said you didn't even remember it, where you were like, you're Rick Fay. Why don't you act like that? And we were like, what's this guy saying? And you were like, but it was really cool the way you said it, because we all looked at each other for a second. And then when you expanded on it, you went, you're a pioneer. You're a legend. We used to read about you in magazines. So you should price yourself accordingly as that. That's the level of success you should have in this martial arts game. And I was like, wow. And so from that moment, I've always loved you, man. And I mean that, hashtag no homo. I should put that one in. No, I like you, but I'm not that way. I'm not that way inclined. But if I was, I'd hope that you'd be the sort of guy that would turn me down. You're a good looking fellow. But anyway, I digress. So the situation is, you are one of the only people that I know that can separate the art from the artist and enjoy it all. And like, the only reason I'm saying this is because you are quite well known for being appreciative of 2 real cultural icons, right? So the new movie's coming out next week, Bob Marley. Yep. And it's going to kill. This movie is going to kill because people have no idea about the man. And this is the crazy thing about cultural icons. A generation forgets, or they don't learn, and then they find out and they go, wow. It's like, recently we had that with Ali, where people are like, what? You're like, no, he wasn't just a boxer. He was a soothsayer. He was a rapper. He was a social commentator. He was probably one of the bravest men you've ever seen. Like, think about any other sportsman that was, any other sportsman that would turn around at the height of their power and go, no, on a principle, I'm not going to go to Vietnam. Right? That's it. So, you look at the backlash that Marley had when he was in Jamaica, and he still stood by his convictions. And then you see Bruce Lee as well. But the thing is, you're not blinded by this, and you haven't beatified these people. And that's the thing, that's one of the things we'll talk about, right? It's like online, these guys have beatified Bruce Lee to the point that he was a 32-year-old guy. Was he a visionary? Yes. Was he a physical specimen? From what I've heard Guro Dan say, yeah. And like, the thing is, I don't know anyone else. I've never met anyone else that spent time with Bruce. And Guru's one of the most unassuming men. As me and you have talked about this before, this guy walks in, and I don't know what a genius is, but that's it. I don't know what understated charisma is, but that's it. And I'm a charismatic dude. You know what I mean? And I look at him and go, like Rick Young, he is like a force of nature. He follows him, or still follows him, I should say. Larry Hartzell was the same. Rick Fay was the same. So all these guys who were legends and giants, like in their own lives, they see something in this guy. And then you see these morons on Facebook, and they're like, yeah, Danny. And I'm like, you have no idea you have no idea how upsetting you get me. But yeah, as I said, that like, all that is like the Michael Jai White thing. I don't know why people are upset about it. Michael Jai White's huge. In a real fight, I think he'd take Bruce. That's it. Yeah, and guess what? It doesn't make any. Here's the mad thing, right? I'm quite well known in martial arts. I think I'm pretty decent in martial arts. I just went and fought people. Like I worked it out. The next nearest guy to me is my fellow black belt at Erdington. And he just trounced me. He's 10 years younger than me. So at 55, there's a big difference between a 45-year-old guy and a 55-year-old guy, right? And I'll tell you something else. There's a hell of a difference between a 22-year-old blue belt who is on the mat twice a day and this guy here.
Right.
And guess what? It doesn't make me any less of who I am.
Right.
And it doesn't, and it certainly doesn't take away my enjoyment. It's crazy. It's unreal. So Dwight, I'm open. I am an open book today. Anything you want to ask me, and I've spoke to my lawyers, and they say, Mick, just say whatever you want. Just put allegedly at the end of it, and you'll be all right.
Yeah. What do you think is a source for these personalities, the ones who do beatify Bruce Lee? Because I've narrowed it down simply to this. I called it backing and forthing today on the broadcast, right?
I've been watching you. Yeah.
Okay. It's because of this. Yeah. Bruce Lee, after he died, Mito Uehara, brilliant businessman. I think Bruce Lee died so Bruce Lee dies in July. I think it's either September or October of 1973. They debut Fighting Stars magazine. They put Bruce Lee on the cover, and posthumously, Bruce Lee becomes an international superstar.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because he was not an international superstar when Enter the Dragon premiered. He wasn't.
No.
But he did become that in subsequent years. That's why. That's all. That's the only reason why, to this day, we're backing and forthing on Facebook. It's nonsensical.
Well, you see, the thing is, Dwight, here's the thing, right? First of all, I've said it several times before, and I'll keep saying it. I was never really a Bruce Lee fan. I didn't get into martial arts because of Bruce Lee. I got into martial arts because of Mr. Miyagi. If you want to talk about a cultural icon, Mr. Miyagi, 1980s, and then very closely followed by Timac in The Last Dragon. You know, he ended up with vanity, and she showed him some moves. You know what I'm saying? For you guys out there, the guys who know, and the guys who don't know, you need to get that right. So, Bruce Lee, it's an interesting one because it was Rick Fay who said it to me once. He was saying about basically, Anytown America, right? So he said Anytown America. Before Bruce Lee, there was a saloon bar, a hairdresser's, and a church in every town. After Bruce Lee, there was a saloon bar, a hairdresser's, a church, and a karate studio, right? And it's a case of Bruce is very interested. It's a very interesting study in the cult of personality. It was a very zeitgeisty thing because I've spent a lot of time trying to work this one out, right? So you might be able to help me out on this. So Bruce Lee, 1972, right? So he passes away 1972. It was 1972. 73. So he passed away in 73, right? So at that time, the nuclear family was still the thing. The boomers were there. They were having children at this period. You know what I mean, right? So boomers were having children. So in America, famously, we still maintain the greatest generation, right? So you want to have a hero, you only have to look at your granddad. You know what I mean? If you can get him to open up to talk about it, he'll tell you stories that are way better than any Hollywood movie. But the thing is, you always want what you haven't got. And so that Eastern mysticism, like you know what it's like. You'll know this, Dwight. You don't appreciate it's very biblical, but the prophet is never ever appreciated in his hometown. The last time Jesus went back home, they didn't treat him very well. You know what I'm saying, right? So of course, the thing is, there was this Eastern mysticism, and then Bruce had the decency to pass away before he ended up doing adverts for Apple or Gap jeans. So that's the thing about the cultural icon thing. So he made these 4.5 movies, TV show, and philosophically, this is the thing, right? I'm not a fan of his, but I think philosophically, at the time, if there was many guys out there, there wasn't many guys out there that were doing what he did.
What he was doing,
but,
right.
But then the thing is, when he passed away, everything after that, I've thought about this quite a bit. It's like a couple of characters that me and you both know on social media. It's like trying to argue with a guy about Star Trek, but they've watched every single episode. So me and you will turn around and go, those Vulcans, they seemed a little bit emotional during Ponfar. Oh, you don't realise Ponfar's only for 7 days every 7 years. And you're like, shit, I've picked the wrong guy to talk about with this because I'm just thinking about horny Vulcans. You've gone right out on one. So the thing is, for Bruce, I think really, like, if we get to the crux of the answer of the story, because I have waffled about it, I think what it is there's just martial arts is quite a nerdy thing anyway, and you can hide in martial arts. It's like, the one thing about the concepts group is we've always fought, we've always sparred, and we've always been very open to guys that are going to be academic about it, and they're wicked martial artists and they're unbelievably good. But in a fight, would they be the guy you want in the trenches with you? No, but guess what? I'm not in a war zone. What it is they're friends of mine. I want those. But these other guys, what they want is they want their hero to stay as it is. I know it sounds really bizarre, but it's like, just imagine like the ultimate fanboy. As we said, we use a Star Trek analogy, right? No one loves fat Captain Kirk. We want Captain Kirk who's going around, banging Orion slave girls and causing mayhem. We don't want the guy who's on the horse with Jean-Luc Picard before he dies. We don't want that guy. And that's the thing with Bruce, because Bruce is eternally young. You know, he's basically Highlander in a Mandarin suit. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. And I think that's the I find it all very, very fascinating that it's like, this is a guy who hated rigidity, hated this dogmatic, autocratic approach to martial arts. And the guys who speak the loudest about him are dogmatic, autocratic. But the thing is, their narrative suits the agenda, right? And I know I'm gonna sound. I don't want to sound like Alex Jones in a gi here, right? But there's this. That I'm not saying that the Bruce Lee estate is the bogeyman, but it's a business. We're talking about, don't talk to me about ethics when you're prepared to put your dad on a lunchbox. You know what I mean? It's like, sorry, like the thing is, me and you, we appreciate what he actually did. We don't, like, we as a thinker, as a martial artist, as an example, unreal. And then what it is it's a business. And that's the thing that with me, what really, pardon my French, what pisses me off is the hypocrisy behind it all. It's like, just admit it, you're in it for the money. If you're in it for the money, have at it, mate. I'm impressed, but you're not in it. You know what I'm saying? Sorry, I've really waffled there, but that's my take.
I remember many years ago watching an episode of I think it was CBS 60 Minutes, and it was about the law firm that specialized in monetizing the estate of a deceased celebrity.
Yeah.
And then so I think they had done work with Elvis Presley's estate, with Jimi Hendrix. And then I found out that the Bruce Lee family was a client. Okay. Well, okay. So that makes sense, right? It makes sense. I don't fault them for much of anything that they've done, because Shannon and Linda were never high-level martial artists. So if they decide, look, you know what, we're going to promote Bruce Lee as a thought leader, we're going to promote Bruce Lee as a philosopher, because the martial arts side of it is just a bunch of bickering, sons of whatever. So I fully understand if you decide, I'm just going to drop that side of it and just promote the other side of it and do some merchandising and make some money off that. It makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah.
Right.
But carry on.
But one of the problems, though, is then if, as the figureheads of a name, right, if you're the descendants of a famous person and what have you, if you then fall under the influence of others who have less than honorable intentions, then you can be played for a fool and not even realize that you're being played for a fool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But you see, this is the thing, right? So I hope you don't mind. What it is, I've just put myself onto Facebook so I can say hi to the guys as well, because now I'm just doing this. So you've said it, right? So here's my take on all of it, right? Lunchboxes, great. Do that deal with Under Armour. That was a fortune. Great. Have at it. I understand. This is like, you own it. It was your dad. It was your husband. Great. But guess what? You know the bit that if he was still alive and he was doing the training, which, by the way, I don't think he would have been, right? I think he would have been a hobbyist by this stage. I think what he was a very, very driven guy. You got, this, right, Dwight? Dude, I hold you in very, very high esteem. So I want you to tell me the truth now, right? If you go round to somebody's house and they have a copy of Napoleon Hill on their bookshelf, right, they will not want to have any small talk with you, right? They are going to be boom, boom, boom. They're going to be driven individuals, right? He said he was going to be huge. Posthumously, he was huge. Was that zeitgeisty? Yeah, I think it was. You know, the movies were good, right? Well, especially Enter the Dragon. Enter the Dragon, like, I still maintain it's a great movie. But it was like, I don't think he was interested in martial arts. I think he would have walked away from that. I think he would have become an action star. And then he certainly wouldn't have gone down the philosophy route. He would have been a rock star. He would have done the Steve McQueen thing for a while, you know, and then maybe later on in life became an artist. You know, this, Rand, you're an artist, right? So
this brings up an idea for me, because when people talk about what they think Bruce Lee might have done or what he might have become, to me, more often than not, what people end up talking about is a blend of fantasy and presentism.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, for example, the idea that Bruce Lee would have trained with the Gracies. Okay. That's based on what? Right. See, so I think a lot of people, it's because, well, the Gracies became a big thing. Right. So since in present time, the Gracies became a big thing, people figure if Bruce Lee had lived and the Gracies had become a big thing, Bruce Lee would have gone to train with the Gracies. But that's not based on any evidence of the way Bruce Lee was when he was alive. Did he go anywhere to study anything with anybody?
But this is the thing, right? So here's the thing, right? So he never went anywhere. Joe Louis came to see him. Yeah. Bob Moore came to see him. Chuck Norris came to see him. Right. Yeah. So everything I've ever heard about Bruce Lee, as I've said before, and this is going to be quite contentious. So any Bruce Lee fans out there, sorry about this, lads, but you know, it's my opinion. Big deal. Right. I've been told by several people that Guro Dan was the yin to Bruce's yang. Right. I've heard that several times. Right. So if that's the case, right, Guro Dan, as I said, mate, I look at him, myself and Kurt Cornwall have said this so many times. This guy, you see him, he lights up the room. He is the most self-effacing man. He can't work out why people are interested in him. When you're talking to him, he's like, you know, I'm just me. And I'm like, no, yeah, trust me. Yeah. I'm going to be really, really generous with myself here. I've got probably 1% of his talent. But guess what? I really believe that I'm awesome. And the thing is, I sell that shit to people all the time, only for the simple reason that I know what it's like to feel awful. And, you know, you fake it till you make it. Martial arts has got me. It was a vehicle for personal development, yada, yada, yada. So that's why with Bruce, I take that part. But with Dan, so with Guro Dan, I'm like this going, if I liked him that much, pretty good chance I wouldn't really like Bruce. And then you hear all these stories about he was quite arrogant. He believed, and he was a 32-year-old guy who believed that he could go. And again, as some of you Bruce Lee fans are going to be well upset about this, I'm 5'8", and I say to people at jiu-jitsu, there's a reason why God made me 5'8", because if I was 6 foot, I'd be horrible. You know, like Dwight, I pass people's guards and I go knee on belly, and literally, this is the truth. I turn around and I shout, King Kong ain't got shit on me. I literally, I said it 3 times tonight. I'm a 55-year-old man, and I quote Alonzo from training day when I do jiu-jitsu, right? And there's a reason why, because I have a bit of that small man mentality. Bruce Lee had exactly the same thing. But Bruce wouldn't have gone to the Gracies. What he would have done was he would have met the Gracies when they were still working out of that garage in Torrance. And he would say, listen, guys, I'll give you $100 an hour. Come and see me. Guess what? First of all, he would roll with any, and this will upset a few guys. Bruce would not have rolled with a Gracie until he had 6 months under his belt of training and drilling and learning techniques. And then he would have dived into the pool. And I don't want to sound like I'm knocking him or anything like that, but he was smart enough to know that you do not go into anything unprepared. Yeah, that's the crazy thing. And then you see, so he would have been that because he would have had that mindset as a warrior, right? And Bob Breen had this great T-shirt years ago. He used to have Warrior, Scholar, Guru. So he did a few of them for when Guro Dan used to come over. When we were lucky enough to have, we used to have, can you believe this shit, right? We used to have Guro Dan Inosanto 3 times a year come to the UK. Yeah. And I used to remember guys going, "Oh, I'll get him up in December. I'll get him up like in November when he's at Rick's. Oh, I'll get him in January. He'll be down at Phil Norman's. Oh, I'll get him in. It's always the 4th of July weekend. I'll get him at Bob's." And now we're like, it's Italy or LA. That's it. Yeah. So we never really appreciated it. But again, we didn't do that. But Bob had these great T-shirts with Warrior, Scholar, Guru, right? So Warrior, I would say Bruce Lee, right? Because a warrior, like a warrior, you know, we're at the top of the food chain, not for the amount of fights we've won as a species, but for the amount of fights we've avoided. You know what I mean? That's how we've won that one, right? So Bruce Lee wouldn't have done any of that. So when guys go, he'd be training with the Gracies. I'll tell you what he wouldn't have done. He wouldn't have gone off and he wouldn't have gone and trained the way Guro Dan did. No. And turn around and goes, I'm just a beginner. And like, you see, this is the thing. And again, it's a real, this is a very important thing to me, right? When I see people shit talking about Guro Inosanto, it kills me for the simple reason that, first of all those guys who say that they're doing Jeet Kune, they'd be doing some sort of version of Taibo, right? Because Dan Inosanto was teaching Jeet Kune when no one really wanted it. You know what I mean? And he stayed true to it. So that's the first thing. And the other thing is, Guru was in there. He goes, I'm a beginner. And he's in a win-win situation all the time. And he isn't playing the old guy. Because as I'm getting older, I've made me think about this a lot, Dwight. Because I'm like this going, playing the old man card. And I'm like, Guro Dan never played the old card. He just went in there, did it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? And Bruce wouldn't have done that. No chance. His ego was too big for it. You got to remember, he was a very, very successful man from where he was to where he ended up just before he passed away. Yeah. You know, whatever way you look at it, Dwight, he was giving privates to James Coburn and Steve McQueen. And he'd done this. I manifested it and I wrote a letter to the universe and it came, right? Maybe he did, or maybe what he did was he just put his thoughts on paper and used that as a guide and went for it. But no, he wouldn't have done that. He wouldn't have trained with the Gracies. And the other one is he's a godfather of MMA. I don't think he'd even be interested in it, mate.
Well, that I maintain is Dana White's way of expressing his admiration for Bruce Lee.
Yeah.
And then again, being a marketer, it's a smart way to align his deal with the Bruce Lee image. You know, so that's another aspect of the whole thing that makes perfect sense to me. But I will tell you, you talked about Sifu Inosanto and his doing what Bruce Lee would not do, his going to other people and becoming their students and relishing being able to be a white belt, and start at the bottom. You know, now that makes sense to me because it takes the pressure off him of having to constantly be in charge, which in other aspects of his life, he's the guy. He's the one in charge. He's the one that everybody is dependent on. So to be able to give that up and just go and roll around on the mat and have a ton of people submit you, right, while you learn.
Yeah, but you see this
perfect sense to me.
Yeah, but you see, this is the thing. It's like, Dwight, you got to remember, it's like, you've seen me, I've posted it several times, you know, do you fight? You train for the street, right? So 9 times out of 10, the guys who do that, it's like, you know, come on, you're an incel and you're still living in your mum and dad's basement. So, you know, living like, you know, what are you waiting for? The zombie apocalypse? You know, first of all, like, as I said, look, I'm looking at my hair, I'm looking at my face now, and I'm like, look at the gi burn, like you can see it from tonight. I let a couple of white belts open up because they're competing, and I was like, go for it. And they were like, I can't believe I've got you. And I went, first of all, you didn't really get me, did you? That's it. And secondly, more importantly, you beat up a guy who's halfway to 110. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, well, it's not really a good big scalp. You know, it's not really great, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, you know, the thing that I've known, like the one big lesson I remember, and it was in Valencia, and myself and Terry Barnett, and I keep saying to you, Dwight, you got to get Terry. He's hard to get, but Terry's the man you need to speak to, and I will try my damnedest to get. But he's such a quiet and unassuming man. He's one of the loveliest people on the planet. And as I've said before about Terry Barnett, this is the thing, a lot of the JKD community don't realise, right? You see Terry's one of these only people in the world that you speak to him, you spend 5 minutes talking to him, and then you see him actually move, and your brain wants to absolutely shut down, because you're like, how can someone that wonderful, such a beautiful human being, be able to do that much whoop ass? You know, he's unreal. He's unreal. But myself and Terry, we were in Valencia, and Guru was showing us footage of, he'd only just started doing some Khmer boxing. So he just started doing some Khmer boxing. We were talking about it, and he showed us the 20 rounds that he'd done on his iPad. And me and Terry were like, and we got to about the 5th round, and Guru's like, well, I hope I'm not boring you. And I said, no, Guru, I'm just knackered. And he went, what's knackered? I said, I'm tired watching it. Not that I was in it, but watching it. And I was like, what drives you to do that? And he said, oh, it was fun. It was a workout. And it was like, it's that whole thing. Like, again, it brings me back to this, when I see guys that have no appreciation of what they see with Danilo Santo. And then my real issue is it's the rewriting of history that they're doing. And the thing is, like, you let a guy away with it a couple of times, and then guess what? The next thing you know, he's saying that he's killed 46 Iraqis. You know what I'm saying? That's a joke, by the way. But you know what I'm saying? It's like, we allow these guys to rewrite history, and then guess what's going to happen in 5 years' time? That's chapter and verse. And it can't be like that. And then,
well, it's kind of like you let them say that boys can become girls. And so you let Leah Thomas swim, right, and break all the records, and you go, oh, well, you know, you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and so if that's what he feels, then, you know, you want to go along with it because you want people to get along and what have you. You do that, and it's the proverbial camel in the nose and what have you, right, before.
Right. So Dwight, let me tell you, right, so this is the thing, right, so I've got a cousin of mine who had a trans child who took their own life, right? Only last year. Horrific. It still wounds me now when I think about it, that somebody went through so much pain at 16 years of age and thought, I can't get out. This is it, right? You know, I'm trapped in this body. And it's a horrible, horrible, horrible thing to think that somebody is that alone and that destitute, you know, emotionally, that they do that. And you go, right, okay. So, you know, I'm saying all that because this is prefacing this, right? So trust me, I have more than enough empathy, right, for anybody who's not able to lead an authentic life, the person they're supposed to be, that you should go for it. Because guess what? I know what it's like to be, like, I know what it's like to feel like a piece of shit. You know, as I said before, I had 7 stops on my bus on the way home from school, and every single bus stop, I had 4 escape routes, right? So that shows how OCD I was first, but that shows you how terrified I was, because I was always getting bullied. But I was getting bullied because I basically, you could beat me up, but you couldn't break my spirit. So I was a challenge to a few guys, right? So I know what it's like to feel awful. But I'm saying that. But it was like you were saying about the Leah Thomas thing. You see, the other side of that is, I had my grandfather in Ireland. He was a farmer, right? And towards the end of his life, Alzheimer's kicked in, but paranoid. He had some paranoid delusions. and he was convinced that the radio in his house was bugging him. Like maybe he was ahead of his time and it was actually Alexa, but I don't think it was. But it was like he was convinced that the British Army were bugging his house. And I remember saying to him when I was 12 years of age, I said, Grandad, you're a farmer. I said, what connections have you got to the IRA? And he said, well, none really. And I was like, right, okay. And I was like, right, okay. So why would the British government be like bugging you? Well, I don't know. And it's the same thing as right now when I listen to some people, and especially social media is the killer. And people are kicking off and they're going crazy, but you don't understand. You respect me. And I'm going, do whatever you want. But guess what? Don't try and get me to jump in on your delusion here. You know, it's like Sam Smith, you know, the singer. Yeah, it's like,
oh man,
dude, you're a billionaire. The guy's loaded. The guy's loaded, and he's turning around and going, "Oh yeah, call me they." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay, they." No, but you don't really believe they. Yeah, I don't really believe in Santa Claus either, mate. You know what I mean? Sorry. Yeah, you can't make me think like that. I'll agree with you, and that's it. And because that's actually quite a good segue into the thing with online, where it's like when you call somebody out and you just go, look, mate, just admit you're full of shit. Well, I'm not full of shit. All right, well, okay, I believe you're full of shit. No, take that back. And you're like, dude, are we back in the sandbox here? Are we like, is this? Are we like 5 years of age here? And it is a nightmare. It's like some of the stuff that I've seen recently, especially
but if you don't take it back, Mick, I'm gonna try to get somebody else to make you take it back.
Who are you gonna get? Who are you gonna get? You're not gonna tase me, are you? Huh?
I'm gonna talk to other people, and I'm gonna get you off the social media, Mick. Right?
Brilliant.
You know, yeah.
I'm like the Rock.
It's I gotta tell about Sam Smith though. So now I refuse to listen to any but just one of his songs because he was so good. That album was so good. So I'll only listen to Money on My Mind. That's it. Any other song comes on, I won't listen.
But the thing is, Dwight, what you got to remember is it's like this. It's like there's one comedian said this years ago. It's quite funny, and it was like, you know, we talk about like we're now finding out like people that were famous. And you find out that, you know, it's like I was saying, like I'm rewriting a lot of the stand-up stuff that I used to do back in the day. I'm thinking about doing it again, but we'll see. So I'm rewriting some of my stand-up. So some of the stand-up that I've been doing is my favorite part is where I'm saying, now, Dwight, have you ever seen The Usual Suspects?
Yeah.
Kaiser Soze. You know who Kaiser Soze was, right?
In the movie,
yeah. And we find out right at the end. So famously, Gabriel Byrne thought he was Kaiser Soze until he saw the movie. Like that, I don't know if you know this. But none of them were told who Kaiser Soze was. So what they did was
in the making of the movie.
In the making of the movie, yeah. So like the thing is, it's like this. It's like Bryan Singer, right? So Bryan Singer, we now find out, is an absolute savage. He's like Roman Polanski, but like with dudes, right? But the thing is, it's like it doesn't take away from the fact that he was a great director. You have to separate that. By the way, I think he should wherever he ends up. I hope they're playing AC/DC and it hurt. It's really, really painful and it's hot, right? But as a director, wicked, right? So. Yeah. He got all of the guys to film scenes. So when they got to the movie, like especially Gabriel Byrne, because the rest of them were like, yeah, my scene was shit. And like Spacey's like, well, I just walked up the road. So he's like, it's not going to be me. And they were just like, then find out, he is that guy, right? So Kaiser Soze, you know, he would go not only famously in law, he would kill everybody and then go and kill your dog. So he was a pretty bad man, right? Then, do you remember Seven? Yeah, with Brad Pitt. Yeah. John Doe was the upper hand. So that movie, right? John Doe, Kevin Spacey again. Like he's a serial killer, right? And then we find out that the actor who played John Doe and Kaiser Soze is worse than those two characters. You're like, shit, man. And then it was like, I remember Chappelle turned around and Chappelle says, for all of the crimes that Kevin Spacey has committed, his biggest crime ever is the fact that I'll never be able to see the end of House of Cards, right? So it's a joke, right? But here's the mad thing. House of Cards is now going to have another series with Kevin Spacey.
Oh, yeah?
Dude, yeah. Come on. It's like, it's unreal. Well, so it's like, this is what gets me to, again, this being able to separate this whole BS. It's like with Bruce, I just don't like, I'm gonna throw a couple of names out, right? Sorry, I have to. But it's like Richard Torres. I'd love to meet the guy. Honestly. Mm-hmm. Like just for the simple reason that strange people fascinate me. You know what I mean? And it's like I'm like, dude, when did you start collecting the socks? And I don't want to knock him because the thing is, like he's a historian and he's put a load of effort into it. And it's like, if you take that part of him, I think wicked. But the bit where he's stuck, and kudos to him for it. And I really mean that. Yeah. Kudos to him. But then don't try and be something that you're not. And certainly if you're going to do that, don't knock anyone else, and certainly don't knock a giant. Don't knock the guy. Like again, this is the thing. Dan Inosanto will never speak up for himself because he doesn't need to, because he's him. Like Guro Dan has no idea how iconic he is.
Right.
But Dwight, I'm sorry, I'm not going to stand by. Especially somebody who's affected my life so much, and I'm not giving it. That clip I put, with the arm drag, put on, Wing Chun guys don't get on with anyone. Wing Chun guys don't like the Wing Chun guys.
Yeah.
I've big respects to Sam Kwok, because Sam got me in there first, right? And I've taught 3 times at that gathering, and it's always the same. I always say, look, you guys are always fighting with each other. What's all that about? And then they go, you JKD guys always fight, and I'm like, not really. And unfortunately, a lot of those original guys have now got computers, haven't they? That's the problem. Like, they stuck in 73 for ages, and then they finally got smartphones, and now we're stuck. So it's one of those.
But if somebody said to you, well, Mick, they can't all be they can't, there's got to be something to it. So what would you say is, let me use the word, what's the benefit? Let's call it, I don't necessarily identify it as being stuck in 73, but for sake of argument, let's call it that. What positive takeaway is there for being, as you put it, being stuck in 73? What's the benefit of that?
Right. Okay. The benefit. So the benefit for me would be, well, I'm going to put it for you, American guys, you'll love it, right? So a Ren, you know what a Ren Fest is? A Renaissance Fest. Mm-hmm. Where you walk around and you're like, I know you're in Iowa, but you're dressed up like some guy and you got half a face cancer hanging off you, and it's medieval England, and forsooth, what's going on? Ha ha ha! Yeah. That's what I think it is. I see some of these guys, especially these original guys. And I'm looking at them, going, you guys are in literally like a martial arts Ren Fest. I really believe, because it's like, what is there to learn from there? It's like Rick Fay has the greatest, and it's even every time I hear him say it, it's unbelievable when he says it. He'll turn around and you know what Rick's like. Rick is like, as I said, Rick's the nearest thing to a father figure that I have. Yeah, and he's only 10 years older than me, but Rick's, as like Rick said to me years ago, he goes, Mick, I'm not a redneck, but I've got a rosy collar, and like, which I found amusing, you know. And like, we've spent more time in conversation than probably training, you know, because he's just such a really, really cool guy. And as I've said to Rick, yeah, as much as I love training with him, just spending time with him and his outlook on life, and he's just a very pragmatic individual and just a very cool person. Very, very cool person. So he always talks about, when he talks about Jeet Kune, he said, "You like cars?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course I like cars." He goes, "What sort of cars do you like?" And I'm, "It's got to be a muscle car, Rick." And he goes, he goes, "What's your favourite?" And I went, "It's got to be the 68 Mustang." And we all know, like, the thing is, 67, 66, nah, 68, 70, it went like that. And you were like, how the hell did you go from being so cool to being so shit so quickly? But the 68 Mustang, man, it had it all. And as long as you're prepared to realize that you're going to have to source like reconditioned parts and everything else that comes with it, you know, and guess what? Don't ever play anything apart from, you know, maybe a bit of Chuck Berry, maybe some early Beatles, but don't you dare play anything after that, because it just doesn't go with it. Yeah. So there's no way you can play any techno. And yeah, for you, try it'd be like, right, okay, you can play some Peter Tosh, you can play Bob Marley, but don't play any Yellow Man, because Yellow Man will not mix on this one. You know what I mean? It just doesn't go together. And Rick says, yeah, 68 Mustang, it's a classic, love it. He said, but you know that new 2023 Mustang, you know, the one that parks itself, you know, that one, you know, because it's still got all the styling, it's got everything, but it's just better, because guess what? We've moved on. There's been a progression. We've enjoyed it. And then I turn around and I turn around and watch these guys go, but you're not even a 68 Mustang, you're in a Yugo. Do you know what a Yugo is?
Oh yeah.
You know what a Yugo is, right?
Yeah.
Good communist design. But you know what? You know what happened there? And that's the thing. But they all think
you know what a Stadia is?
Yeah. How not to get laid. That's what that is. You know what I mean? It's like, you turn up in that, guess what? Yeah, welcome to Inceldom, mate. You're going to be, you are going to be literally a celibate as a Catholic. Oh, I was going to say Catholic priest, but you can't, can you? But you know what I'm saying. No. So that's when I see it. When I see it, I'm like, you know, literally, it sounds bad when I say this, but you know what a Luddite is, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, you know, these guys that smashed up looms because they hated progress.
Mm-hmm.
That's those guys. That's what it always amuses me, because every now and again I'll put on Facebook, I went, so what are you guys, what are you using a computer from now? I said, really? I said, are you not using like a talking head from Charles Babbage? You know, it's like, you just got to get with it, you know, deal with it. And it, you know, this is, you got me on something here, Dwight. It's like, when my generation first started martial arts, nobody really knew how to fight, really. Yeah. And then when I see, especially a lot of these JKD guys, it makes me smile, because it's like, in a real fight. And you're like, first of all, for the last 30 years, literally everybody knows how to fight, or at the very least they understand what the shape looks like. An armbar shape. They've played the Xbox, they've played PlayStation, they've wrestled with their friends. You know, I said this with a good friend of mine, Jeff Thompson. We were talking about fighting in the UK, and I was like, yeah, but everything you did at the time would work, but now we're so surveilled. And this is the thing, it's like, well, I don't care, I'll knock you out. I was that guy. For years, I'd be like, yeah, I'll just batter you and I'll deal with the consequences later. But that's coming from a man who had nothing to lose.
Right.
Yeah. So now it's like, yeah, well, you're not that guy out. And I'm like, Dwight, I'm a good looking dude, right? Even for my age, right? So I get locked up. Yeah. That's gonna be a great night for one guy and maybe a bad night for me. or vice versa. But you know, you understand what I'm saying. It's like there's repercussions to this now. So when people talk about, well, I just do this, it's combat's completely changed. And the other one as well is whatever happened to using martial arts as a vehicle for personal development. You know, so again, I always quote Rick Fay on this, and Rick Fay takes it straight from Guro Dan, which when Guro Dan used to say about a screamer, and he used to say, "There's magic in this art." Do you remember that? So he used to always say, so Guru used to always say that the old guys in the Philippines used to say there's magic in this art. I don't know, did you ever hear that?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. So Guru used to say there's magic in this. And Rick told me, told me several times, he went, yeah, Guru used to always say that. And then Guru used to expand on it, and he'd say, yeah, but 100 years ago, if you said to somebody that we could take a picture of the inside of your body. Now it's an X-ray, right? It's an MRI. And like Rick said, we're now finding out the restorative nature. Like I know for a fact that 2 hours of cardio on a Sunday morning for me straightens me out for the rest of the week for the rooking that I have to do at jiu-jitsu.
Right.
And it's keeping me there. And again, it's like I always have to quote Guro Dan. Guro Dan says you can go, yeah. That's the way you can go into old age, or you can that way. He said, because you're not going to beat it, but you don't have to go careering into it. And as I said, I've said it so many times, but when these guys knock literally a genius, and you're like, what are you doing? It's unreal. It's unreal.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing that, and I have never even heard them express it this way, but what I get from their insistence, for example, on the eye jab and the side and the kick, the low kick or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. Now, the idea of a few techniques honed to perfection, I agree with that. You see, because that is something that can permeate through any system of training.
Yeah.
Right? A few solid techniques honed to perfection, that's a guiding principle for everything. The problem is they don't express it that way. They don't say this is a guiding principle for everything that you're training in martial art. It's like, no, this is JKD and this is what will work as long as you have honed it to perfection, without understanding that, well, there's a guy who has honed to perfection getting away from that finger jab and taking you down.
But you see, this is the thing. I've been watching you recently, Dwight, because it's like a combination of watching a kitten play with a mouse and Gary Kasparov playing chess with some of the stuff that you're doing online at the moment, because you're giving just enough information and then there'll be a rebuttal, and then the rebuttal backs up your argument against their argument, right? Like one of the things I've been saving this. I was actually going to put this on Facebook, and I thought, no, I'm going to save it for when I speak to Dwight. So you know this big issue of it's an accumulation. That's not right. That's not right. So oh, by the way, Anthony Labrador, that was a beer. Yeah, very observant. There's nothing wrong with hearing. Over here, it's 11:01. Sorry, it's 11:01 p.m. So 5 o'clock somewhere for you guys. And more importantly than that, I'd just like to take a moment. Other beverages are available. First of all, I was sponsored by Poland earlier. I only drink 2 beers a week, right? And it's always after jiu-jitsu, because otherwise I will just be manic till about 3 o'clock. And my wife's like, why can't you just go to bed? And I'm like, I've spent an hour and a half trying to kill humans. and now you want me to go back to being a human being. So what I'd like to say is other beverages are available, but for my good friend Ty Campos, It's a desperado. I don't know if you've heard of this, Dwight, but they're,
Yeah.
they're going to build a wall soon, so you won't be able to get this anymore. But at the moment, it's still available, right? So anyway, I was joking. So anyway, I just wanted to give Ty a shout out, and I'll be waiting to shout the Mexican beer at him. No, so this accumulation thing, it really, really makes me smile because you know, how many people do you know, Dwight, who accumulate books, read them, and then become more stupid? Never happens, right? And then you know, have you ever heard of? I don't know if you ever heard about this. You get money. I don't know. I don't want to sound like Norm Macdonald here, but have you ever heard of money? Right. So money is coin of the realm, and when you accumulate money, you become a millionaire or a billionaire. And unfortunately, in the society that we live in, that means you're successful. So when I see these guys, I look at them and I'm going, you guys are literally martial art panhandlers. You know, it's like, yeah, no, it's the truth. It's like, hey, have you got a book, brother? And you're like, no, I haven't got. Yeah, but at least I'm authentic. And I went, yeah, you're authentically poor. You know, that's and that's in martial arts as well, because it's like, oh, don't fear the man with 10,000 techniques. Fear the man with 10,000. Yeah, you know that one technique 10,000 times. Now I'm going to quote a legend, right? Greg Nelson. Greg has got this great line where he comes out and he says, practice makes perfect, eh? He goes, no. Perfect practice makes perfect. Practice makes perfect if it's bad. Just makes a really bad technique really bad. And that is exactly the situation. And it's a real, oh, sorry, my phone's just beeped. And I've got Lee Richardson. I don't know if you know Lee Richardson. He's a Scottish person. We have this gulag. We have this gulag up north in England where we put all our undesirables up there. Happy birthday, by the way, Lee. You're a top man. I'm just seeing. I'm just. By the way, I'm just checking it all out. But yeah, when I watch you, obviously, I'm normally posting messages. 9 times out of 10, it's stuff about Iraqis and stuff like that. But I just, sorry, I had to check that out. Yeah. So carry on.
It's almost as if they figure, okay, here's what you do. You just regurgitate some stuff that you know is ascribed to Bruce Lee, right? Whether it's his notes or his notes of somebody else's notes or what have you. And it sounds good and it sounds like it might fit in. But that's a fallacy, because you could say, be water, my friend, in any situation in the world, and it will sound cool. It don't make no goddamn sense, but it sounds cool.
Well,
right? You know, it's like Mick, you're having a beer at 11 o'clock at night and you go, yeah, man, be water, my friend. Right?
I'm Irish, my friend.
Right?
Yeah.
It fits in. You know what I mean? Yeah. Right? Yeah. So beer is a kind of water. And Bruce Lee said, be water, my friend.
Well, every day's a school day, right? So, Dwight, whiskey in Irish is called Ishka Baha, right? So Ishka is water and Baha is life. So whiskey is actually called the water of life. But here's the thing, where, you know, again, we don't even have to mention names because everyone knows who these characters are, right? So what it is first of all, they come out with this ridiculous stuff that makes them sound like it's vague. So they think that it makes them sound either interesting or like they're philosophers. And when I listen to it, do you know what I hear? I hear a Japanese businessman drunk singing My Way on karaoke. That's what I hear, because that's exactly what these guys sound like. Mm-hmm. It's like, as you said, they're regurgitating this nonsense, because that's why every now and again I do this walk on and all that crack. And it's like, I just literally, I just don't get it. You know, yeah. I get this 32-year-old dude, but if you guys love Jeet Kune Do that much, why didn't you go and train with the guy who was with him literally every day? You know, if you really want to do it, or yeah, did you take the shortcut? I think most of you took the shortcut.
Mm.
And again, it's like, yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. If you want to be a fanboy, be a fanboy, but don't mug off the rest of us who are actually trying to do it correctly. You know, to thine own self be true. You know yourself, like Dwight. But I take the Mickey out of everyone. Mostly I take the Mickey out of myself a lot, right? But at least I'm authentic. I know what I am. Yeah. If someone says to me, you're a good martial artist, I can name off the top of my head 15 guys in my town better than me. But I'm the guy saying a few things. So that's it. But it's like, it's that whole thing that like the vagueness. And did you ever see a movie called Mystery Men? Have you ever seen that movie? William H. Macy was in it. Oh, there was a character in it called the Sphinx, and Ben Stiller's in it as well. So the Sphinx, his superpower was he was just mysterious, and literally he would come out with like literally the nonsense that we hear. Guys who are watching, if you get a chance, like check out Mystery Men. It's very, very good. The villain's name in it is called Casanova Frankenstein. Tim Betcher loves Mystery Men. Tim, I'd be very disappointed if you didn't. It's a very, very good movie. There's one of the guys in it's called the Shoveler, but the guy who's the Sphinx is literally about 6 guys that we know, you know, and they come out with nonsense, and it's like I watch them and I'm like, you guys are Jim Jones in a Mandarin suit, literally. They are. Yeah, they're just a couple of gallons of Kool-Aid away from doing being a Netflix special.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. It's unreal. It's unreal.
I just you talk you when I thought about this when you mentioned Gabriel Byrne a few minutes ago. I just watched. I couldn't finish it, but I watched it because do you know the actress Gugu Mbatha-Raw?
No, but I tell you what a name to have at Scrabble. My God, that'd be unreal, eh?
Yeah. Well, when you look her up, you'll see you'll know why I watched the movie any movie that she's in, right? But I couldn't finish it, and I've noticed that that's what has started to happen to me now. If you put something in the script, and I'm like, no woke points, I'm done, right? But in the movie, there's a scene with another guy named Burn Gorman.
Right.
You know Burn Gorman?
No.
Yeah, Burn Gorman was in Torchwood with Sylvia Miles.
Yes,
right?
I do, yeah.
So I'm watching him, I'm going, that's Gabriel Byrne.
I'll tell you what. Believe it or not, I went back and watched recently Enemy of the State. You know, it's Gene Hackman, Will Smith's in it as well. You know, Will Smith's like, take your wife's name. No, he didn't do that. That was the Chris Rock thing. Was that a movie or not? I tell you what. Hey, and I wanted to be the Fresh Prince, and you know what? Now I want to be Carlton. That's the deal. No one wants to be Will Smith anymore, right? But I watched Enemy of the State, and it really has aged. Like all the conspiracy theory stuff. It's a bit like the Mel Gibson thing. It's like you remember the movie Conspiracy Theory that Mel was in. So I had this bit that I was doing. I'm trying to rewrite it for the stand-up. Where you go, have you seen that thing? It's Mel Gibson, you know, where he starts going on about like the Jews run the world, and oh no, that isn't a movie. That was him getting pulled over, right? So it's like the crazy thing is, as we're getting older, it's like it's all coming true.
Yeah,
like everything. It's like it's like, you know, the Chinese say, "May you live in interesting times." Man, I'm telling you, I'm watching right now. It's like I'm like. Do you remember when politics was boring? Like, right? Now it's like the Kardashians. If I get the choice between watching Khloe Kardashian, right, and like Joe Biden do that impression of that vacuum cleaner that you have, the robot vacuum cleaner. Like he's doing that impression of it at the moment where he's walking around the place not knowing where he is. And then Trump's there and it's like, I'm watching all of this. I'm going, is this politics or is this WWE? Yeah. Because it literally is so, it's like, I never thought we'd live in these times. Dwight, when I was a kid, I thought we were going to be really sensible, grown-up individuals with flying cars. And look where we are. You know, I got a blanket that plugs in and people are walking around with electronic cigarettes. You know what I mean? It's like, this isn't George Jetson, man. That's what I signed up for. Yeah. I signed up for that.
I watch the politics with the volume down because I watch it for the girls. Because there are some really good-looking girls in politics, man. Oh yeah, I was watching Alex Walker interview Gavin Newsom the other day, and I'm just watching her, and I'm just like, man, I wish she would interview me.
Oh, yeah. Ouch! Well, hey, Dwight, I'm sorry, but I'm still Team Palin all the way. You know what I mean? It's like everyone's like, why go to Alaska? And I'm going, Sarah Palin. I don't know. Unfortunately, we don't have that in the UK. You know, we had was it?
Oh,
yeah, it was.
But in the UK, you have Esther Kraku.
Esther Kraku. She's Esther Kraku. I'm not aware of her work.
Somebody help Mick out of his misery. Let me see if I can pull her up.
Good. Esther Kraku.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let me see if I can get an image on the screen for you, Mick.
Let's see. Now I'm here with bated breath.
Yeah. Hang on. There's I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, but okay.
But I have to admit, I have to turn the volume down when I watch that Megyn Kelly, right? Oh wow, who's she?
That's Esther Kraku.
Are you sure? And she's a politician.
She's not a politician. She's a political commentator. She's a journalist, I should say.
Yeah, but you see, now the thing is, Dwight, you're going into very, very dodgy water here, because it's like we've started having like pundits of all different types for sports, all based on their looks. So, like me personally, I really like in football. I really like the female commentators, not for their looks, but the thing is they're really, really, really on the ball, pardon the pun, because they know the football inside out.
Right.
And the guys are awful. And there's a massive backlash in the UK at the moment because all these guys go, we don't want women telling us about football. And I'm like, I don't really understand football. You're aware of soccer, right? You've watched it, yeah?
I refuse to use that term.
But soccer?
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Thing is, you're Jamaican. You won't want to do that. When you look at football, American football, because you've got a bit of a game coming up this week, haven't you, in Vegas?
Yep, we do.
Yeah. It's the Super Bowl. So the Super Bowl's a bit like the World Series of baseball, isn't it? It's like, so only America and Canada are in it. So I don't know, but I actually really do like the Super Bowl. But I only like the Super Bowl because I like the tactics behind it. But that's my OCD. Like, if you had to pick a sport, Dwight, what sport would you watch and why?
I would watch American football.
Really? And who's your team?
I don't have a team, but I would watch it because when I found out about, when I learned what it was about, the whole, the objective of gaining ground, and then the specialties of positions on the field, right? And that type of stuff. I was like, this is utterly fascinating.
You
It's
see, this
not
is
just a bunch of guys running and you try to pass the ball off to them.
now this is going to lead me into something now, right? So when I first started watching football back, I was a Dolphins fan initially through Marino. Yeah, so like 86.
Okay.
And then again, it's funny because as you get older, you get an appreciation of sports. But like basketball, I never rated until I went back and watched Larry Bird and then realized the whole tactics behind it. So American football was the one that got me because it was like you're sowing the seeds, right, of a play maybe 13 minutes before you get the fruition of it. And I'm like, this is like how? Because it's so chaotic and it's unreal. But if you don't know what you're looking at, it just looks like a load of guys who like they play rugby, but their mums have all given them a pass to say, little Johnny has to wear a helmet today, because in rugby they don't wear any of that protective gear whatsoever, right? But the tactics behind it, and I was like, Jesus, now this is Sun Tzu. This is like, like I couldn't get it.
Yeah.
I could not get it, and it's like even now, it's American football is very interesting because it's quite a Jeet Kune thing because the game now is completely different. It was like when I remember when Lesnar tried, like you got to like if you want to understand what an athlete is, Brock Lesnar was heavyweight champion of the UFC. He like you can call it sports entertainment or whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
But wrestling is a sporting endeavor that you need to be an athlete for, and he couldn't make the cut at the Vikings. What the actual fuck? Yeah, it's like, what is that, man? It's like, what? And it was Rick Fay who said it to me first. And I was like, all right. And then the next year I went over to the Minnesota Kali group and we had all of the enforcers come over because Rick used to have this really, like, I'm not speaking out of turn, Rick people will know this now because he still does some work with the NFL. But at the time he had a contract with the NHL. So we used to get fighters come in. And it was like, we used to spar with these guys and they were so limited. Like, but man, when they banged you, you knew you were banged.
Right.
Right. And it's like, it was that progression. And again, it was like, this will get us back into JKD where it's like, they came in, they took the bit that they needed. Most of the time, it was an overhook or a whizzer. So it was a whizzer to take down for the uppercut, or it was an overcut to lift them to get the uppercut and then go over for the hook. And it was like, if you were a JKD purist, you'd look at it and go, this is so limited. And you're like, that guy's getting paid $15 million a year, right? He's got knives on his feet and a stick in his hand, and then he throws the gloves off. So the only thing that's protecting him, he takes the helmet off, and you're like, you're a special type of retard, and you're like getting paid $15 million a year, and that's JKD right there. It's like, how's that work out? That's that. When I look at that, I'm going, right, okay, practice that technique 10,000 times. Then we're there.
I do have to tell you though that that when the American football was explained to me, prior to that, my game was still cricket.
Oh, now me and my wife have this conversation all the time, right? So anybody from the Caribbean, you got to remember, Dwight, I understand why you like cricket. That's 5 days where you're doing nothing but hanging out with your friends, talking shit and having a laugh. I get it. At least you're honest. At least you're honest, right? Me, I'm like this. I say to my wife all the time, I'm like, I'm Irish. I don't understand cricket. And she said, yeah, but it's dead easy. It's this many overs. And I'm like, so why don't you just throw the ball at the guy? Yeah, you can't do that. That's cheating. And I'm like, yeah, but that'd be the most effective way to get him out, wouldn't it? Just, guy's pretty good at throwing the ball. And it's the same as baseball. I'm like, just throw the ball at the guy's head, knock him out. But having said that's it. But yeah, cricket. Cricket again. I have a grudging admiration for it. I'll watch some 2020 because you know, for the simple reason that Dwight, as I tell people all the time, in my daily life, I'm a plasterer, right? So a drywall contractor, right? So OCD is a hell of a thing to have when you're this guy, right? Because ADHD and OCD, this is why I'm successful at my job. Because guess what? It has to be right. So the 2020, my attention span will just about do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But any more than that, like a 4-day test, 5-day test, I'm like,
yeah. But you know, but there's one. I mean, and this happened many years ago. I mean, I don't even know if it's a record that's been broken or whatever. But there was a batsman for I think Brian Lara was playing for the West Indies.
Brian Lara, yeah, man. He had no neck. He was like me. He was a white version of me, right? Sorry. No. Brian Lara. I think he played for Trinidad, if I remember correctly. But Mick, he was the number one batsman, so he went in right at the beginning and played like all 5 days.
Wow. He ended up scoring like 365 runs.
Wow, that's good. That's good going.
Okay, now it doesn't look like that takes a tremendous amount of endurance or focus and concentration because, well, you're just hitting the ball. But to be there for 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, but you see, this is the thing, Dwight. I put this on Facebook 2 days ago. If you're an amateur, you don't know what you're looking at, right? So to a guy who doesn't know art, they'll look at Jackson Pollock or Kandinsky and go, that's paint splashes and cubes. For people who know what art is, they'll go, this is amazing, right? The thing with Brian Lara, what you're talking about there, is he was in the zone.
Yeah.
He was there. Like he was there for that amount of time, and you can't switch off because it's the old samurai adage, isn't it? It's like, you know, I'll bring it back to martial arts. You know, when the guy does the drill and he drops the hands and he turns around and you go, that's the moment you're going to get knocked out, mate. Don't switch off. You know, I design all of my drills. So all of my CSW drills I took from Eric. And Eric used to do this thing where you would switch over more for a space thing than anything. You know, where you'd walk around and then you do the drill, end up, switch, you go again. But what I found was some of the guys that trained with me used that for a break. So what I did then was, if I did a takedown, you'd have to step over the guy's head, and and then like literally emasculate the guy and stand over them and say, "What are you doing there? Get up, bitch!" And then they'd have to get up, scramble, they'd go again. But the thing was, I had to do that because I was like, I've only got 5 minutes, and I want them to continuously stay in the zone. It's not like a screamer. It's not like say Numerado. So play Numerado, and as you do Numerado, you're able to have these literally respites where, and I think this is where the magic is in that, Carly, where it's like you're intense, then there's a respite, then there's intensity, and there's a respite. And then with Eric, that was where his genius was. Eric's genius was, no, you're on now. You got to keep going, you keep going, you keep going. And then, so it goes back to the Brian Lara thing, which is like, you're there. try and be in that state. Yeah. Be that zen for 4 days. Whoa.
Yeah. Well,
good going.
That's like being a sniper.
Oh, that's the what it's like. One of my favorite shows on TV is Shooter. So the movie was pretty good, right? So they had the movie, and then the TV show was really good because they turned it on its head. But you got like this, this one guy, and it's always the same. It's a Russian, you know yourself. It's you want a baddie, get yourself a Russian. He'll never let you down. You know what I mean? He's just maniacal and the rest of it. But he's like, he'll sit there for like 48 hours, and you're like, and immediately my OCD brain's going, how's he go to the toilet? Without even thinking about anything else, I'm like, I hope he's wearing a pair of pull-ups or something. This is going to get really messy. Yep. Yeah. But it's like, that's the sort of conversation I like when I'm watching Netflix with a wife. I'm like that going, how'd you go to the toilet? And my wife's like, is that the first thing you thought of, Mick? And I'm like, yeah. And she went, why? And I said, well, if I was going to spend 48 hours waiting to kill somebody, I want to take a dumping piece. You know what I mean? It's but it's being in the zone is something else, man. It's something else. But Dwight, I'm really aware of the fact you haven't asked me any really difficult, like contentious questions, like where I can just do the Jordan Peterson gotcha moment, set the internet on fire. Is there anything you've ever wanted to ask? Nah, that's just bullshit. That's me chatting all the time. I'm an open book. You got to remember, there's no filter here with me. This is again, it's like yourself, Dwight. We come from that generation of like, why would you pretend to be something you're not? The only thing that I get is I get a lot of people. I've got a really dear friend of mine, Nathan Leverton. Nathan has said this, and my dear mutual friend of both of ours, Kurt Cornwell. Kurt said several times that he's had to say to people, when you get to meet Mick, when you really get to meet Mick, he's nothing like he is on the internet. And they're like, because he's so contentious. And I'm like, I'm just screwing with most people, especially if they take themselves seriously. Right.
Well, it's because they, like you said earlier, every day is a school day. Right.
Yeah.
I tried to counsel other moderators on how to deal with you. Right.
Yeah.
Because, first of all, being a Facebook moderator, do you know any millionaire Facebook moderators? You know anybody who makes a successful living being a Facebook moderator? Okay. So then why should it be such a serious thing?
Exactly.
Right. So what is the story behind policing? Oh, you can't come on here and say that because you got to understand this and you got to understand that. And I have the power to ban you and you'll be excommunicado and you'll be this and that. And I'm like, are you guys for real?
Dwight, that's right. It's like, it's bad. It's like they're like, we're going to ban you. And I'm like, okay, cool. I've got more time for OnlyFans. I try to support single mothers where I can. You know what I mean? It's a rough economy out there at the moment.
So I said to Brooks Long the other day, I think it was Brooks. I was like, was it Brooks? It's either Brooks Long or Kent Chin, I think. And he put up the picture of Jim Carrey and Lauren Hardy.
Oh, loved it. Yeah.
Right. And so ultimately I said, well, I hope that you learned who by name has a sense of humor and who doesn't. I mean, look, the unfortunate thing is that there are people who will be confused by that image. Right? Unfortunately, there are people who will be confused by it. But then there are people who will get the joke like immediately. Okay. So I tend to make a note of who goes along with it and who thinks it's sacrilegious, who thinks it's it's in bad taste or what have you. Yeah.
Hey, well, hey, come on, right? Yeah, think about it this way, right? So, if you look at it from a joking point of view, right? So, Stanley Ipkiss, right? Stanley Ipkiss or Truman Burbank is Shannon Lee's stepdad. Now, for a stepdad, that's a pretty cool. Either of those guys are pretty cool, right? So you've got that. Secondly, it was a movie. Thirdly, guess what? That movie was shit. It was really, really awful. So guess what? You don't get to have any real opinion on it. The minute I saw Jerome Sprout rock up, yeah, Jerry Petit was in the background, and I'm like, Jerry, why have they got you involved, dude? You should dive out of this one, right? So he's in there. This isn't going to help you, Jerry. You don't want to be any part of that. And then some mad samurai. And then it's like, oh, by the way, there's this curse on the Bruce Lee family. And you're like, you want me to take any of this seriously? I remember I came out of watching Dragon with my wife, and my wife turned around to me and she said, I always knew martial arts was nonsense, but what have I just watched? And I was like, I turned around to her and I said, I felt that literally, I was like, the only way I can explain it is, did you go and see Seven at the cinema? I referenced it earlier, the Fincher movie, you know, with the serial killers. Yeah. So that was the first time ever that I went to, I paid for an experience and came out. And my wife said, how do you feel? And I went, bereft. Literally, I felt like you know, that 1,000-yard stare, you know, when you see like, I was going to say, you know, when you see two Vietnam veterans where they look at each other and they give that understanding. But nowadays it's more like, you know, when you see two married men at IKEA, where like just two soulless dudes, and they're like, they look at each other and go, how the fuck did we both get here, dude? And they look at you, look at each other. And like, that's how bereft I was. And I came out of it and it was like, wow. And then when that came up and you were like, you'll soon find out who's got a sense of humor and who hasn't. And then I literally tried to hold back because I was going to go, Linda Lee married the guy from Earth Girls Are Easy? Wow. You know what I mean? And then obviously I'll be excommunicated and all the rest of it. Yeah. But it's like, it brings it all back to that whole, how did he get beatified? And more importantly, like some of these fanboys, man, they're killing me. It's like, you know, I'm stoked that he was such a big inspiration in your life. But the minute you start talking about the philosophy and the self-awareness and the becoming a better martial artist,
right?
Then guess what? You need to, you know, yeah, I'm going to paraphrase a great line from a movie. You need to direct your pizza, not to Daddy Green's Pizza, but to Marina Del Rey. Because guess what? That's where real JKD is. Yeah. Because that's where the research is being done. And guess what? Call it whatever you want. In fact, you know what I really think, and I really wish we'd all do? Not the JKD on the head. Yeah, just don't call it that anymore. Just say I don't know. Like, I have people rock up now and I have to say to them, and I say, do you know who Bruce Lee was? And they go, who? And I went, yeah, he was Jet Li's dad. That's literally how old we are now. And it's just, I don't know, mate.
Yeah.
The more I think about it, the more it makes my head hurt.
Yeah. I mean, I differ from you because I still am a Bruce Lee fan. Right. I did go more deeply into martial art because of him.
Right.
You know, so I made the pilgrimages out to Seattle to the gravesite and what have you, but then went, as they say, went to LA for Bruce, stayed for Dan.
Now you're talking. Well, I went.
Okay.
I went to Seattle. I went to Seattle in 2008, and the guys were like, "You're going to go to like Andy Wilson, actually, like dear
Oh,
Andy Wilson."
you were at the 35th anniversary thing?
No, I was at the
Oh.
Carly group. I was at the Carly.
Oh.
It was Minnesota Carly group. It was our instructor conference, and believe it or not, I was invited to go to it, and I wasn't even an instructor at the time. And I said to Rick, "Are you sure?" And Rick was like, "No, come along, come along." And had a whale of a time, and they were like, "Do you want to go?" And I went. 'Cause Jimi Hendrix is in the same graveyard, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I went.
Oh no. Hang on, guys. If I don't get Mick back, his battery probably went dead. So give me a second. I'm going to turn off here for a second and go pick up some stuff and be right back. Okay, let's see where Mick is. His battery probably went dead or something. So but we've been going for 90 minutes now. So if I don't get him back, we'll just wrap this up. And yeah, Tim, talk among yourselves. Right. So for those of you who are only now tuning in, this is episode number 292 of the Jeet Kune Dialogues. You can Mark. Okay, so Mark says the weather sucks where they are, so that's probably what it is. I knew it. Right. Mick says the iPad died. Okay, so let's do some commerce. Most of you should know by now that in a month, actually, March 9th and 10th, here in Miami, we're doing the Titans of Jeet Kune seminar with Rick Fay, with Chris Kent and Cass Magda. You can go to titansofjkd.com for full information. In fact, the price increases tomorrow. So if you were thinking about doing this, I'd suggest you go ahead and get yourself registered right now. Just go to titansofjkd.com. You can support me and the show at jkdrebel.com. Click on the Rebel Gear link, and that's where you'll see stuff like this. The Unified Martial Art Academy official Kali JKD t-shirt, jkdrebel.com, and then just click on the Rebel Gear link. All right, I think Mick is back. Let me get him back on screen here. Second iPad, my friend. Okay, iPad number 2.
3, 2, 1. You're back in the room. iPad number 2. Apologies, guys. Normally, I would blame the ghost of Jerome Sprout on that one there. You know what I mean? It's I blame him for nearly everything. So sorry about that, guys.
Okay,
but we are back.
All right. So we talked about advantages or disadvantages of the original approach. What about advantages or disadvantages of the concepts approach? Because I'll start. I think with some people, they have too much of a shallow approach because they're doing a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of that and a little bit of that, right? And which some people will refer derisively to as style hopping. Now, I don't, right? So I'm not accusing people of style hopping, but I am accusing them, so to speak, of not being deliberate and directed in their study. They're flitting around with it. They're not going deep and get into the essence of these things. They're just collecting technique upon technique upon technique without realizing that that's never where it's at. So that's my take on it. What do you say?
Well, here's the thing, right? So, believe it or not, you gotta love Zuckerberg, man. You know, as we're getting older and we're losing our memories, yeah, Zuckerberg is helping us, right? Because 14 years to the day, I've got to give a big shout out to Thorsten Klangworth and to John as well, right? Because 14 years ago to the day, I was put on Guro Dan's program, right? So this will hopefully give you a little bit of insight. So we're star hopping, right? So 14 years ago to the day, put on the program, right? One of the advisories I was given was there seemed to be quite a hole in my grappling. Every other skill set seemed to be pretty good, but the grappling, right? So last year I got my black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. We had COVID, so that took 2 years out. Your average is 12 to 15 years to get your black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So what I did was I took the advice that I was given, threw myself in hook, line and sinker. When I look back on it, probably threw myself in a little bit too much into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu at the cost of other arts. But like all addicts, you know what it's like, yeah? That Kimura's a hell of a drug, right?
Yeah.
So, of course, I went in there. But it's exactly what you said. Like this idea of star hopping, okay. I got like it's my, you know, it's one of my pet peeves. It's like I am aware of it and I have observed it. And like I remember it was a silly line. I have to where you know, when you see silliness, you have to call it out, right? Yeah. So Richard Torres turned around and said, I would observe enough jiu-jitsu to be able to nullify it. And at that point, it was at that point where it just reminded me of that classic line from Oscar Wilde, which is don't ever argue with an idiot. Because first of all, he'll drag you down and beat you with experience. That's the first one. And secondly, a bystander will walk past and won't know which one of you is the idiot because you're arguing with an idiot, right? And he said, I'll observe it. And I'm like, it doesn't work like that. If only it did work like that. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is a completely nuanced art. And once you're in that world, it doesn't matter what you've got. Short of a gun, you are going to get hammered, right? Yeah. It's like, I think one of the things that we're guilty of, especially in the concepts world, is where we've allowed people to think that Muay Thai is basically a combination of a couple of like a round kick and a couple of elbows. Like that's again, you watch Master Chai in action, you understand you're looking at Mozart. You're looking at something completely different. And because you have a finite amount of time, you can't devote a lifetime, to an art form, right? So this brings me to I get where their argument is coming from. But what they're doing is they're trying to use their argument against us, which is, so I need to do 12 years of jiu-jitsu to be able to beat a jiu-jitsu fighter. And you're like, no. That like tonight at Ernington, that I don't think there's that every single guy that I roll with tonight could get me on their day, right? But if I'm allowed to punch them in the face at least twice, or if we start standing, it'll be a different game. But that's like turning around and saying, you know, it's that whole thing, it's chess, it's not checkers. Like if you sign up and say you're going to be a martial artist, you go under the rules of that particular discipline at that time. Right. So when I see where you talk about the benefits, so the benefits of understanding, say, Muay Thai is the benefits of it's easy. The benefits of Muay Thai, devastating martial art. The benefits of Muay Thai as you get older is understanding your limitations and understanding which parts of Muay Thai work for you now.
Now.
right? Now, right?
Yes.
This is the thing. Muay Thai is an art that ages with you. Jiu-Jitsu is an art that ages with you because as you get older, you realize it's more skeletal strength than muscular strength. You beat people up with your frame. You beat people up with your skeleton. Your skeleton will age a lot slower than your musculature. So you get that. So first of all, it's like, so you stay relevant. Yeah. You stay, yeah, relevant's probably the best thing I can say. It's like, if you think about Guru Inasanto, right? How many 80, what's he now? 88 next birthday, right? How many 88-year-olds do you know who are engaged and as present in their lives than Guru? I'm sure there's a few. I don't think there's many, right? And I think that's down to his training. And the other one as well is it's just the fluidity of thought, the flexibility of thought. Like, again, it's, if you want to know the pros and cons, it's dead easy. It's like these original guys, they're sticks in the mud. Like, literally, I look at them and they're as embarrassing as watching a guy in his 50s dressing like a teddy boy. You know what I mean? It's like, mate, it's over now. Deal with it, you know. But like with Guru's like still one of the most relevant, up-to-date men I've ever met.
Yeah.
He sees life in a completely different way than most of us do. It's one of the things that I've taken from him, which is I look at it and I try to have that childlike inquisitiveness about everything, where you look at it, you go, right, oh, wow, that's so cool. And I just don't see it. I don't see it in any of that original group. And the other one as well is, there's a few of them that they tried to make the cut, couldn't make the cut. There's a couple of guys, like, fair play to them. If they want to be historians, then great. It's like one of the things that I've always really admired about, you know, Sifutaki and Andy Kimura. They do exactly what they say on the tin. They do what they were taught at that time. Don't denigrate anything else. Like literally, Andy Kimura is one of the guys who's on my bucket list just to meet.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, and I look at him and I go, right, so why can't the rest of you guys be that cool? Yeah, I don't know. It just seems to be weird. So the benefits are easy, Dwight. Dwight, do you want to be one of the cool kids, or do you want to be an old footy duddy? Because guess what? You do that, you're going to smell like Werther's Originals, and you're wearing Skechers. That's what these guys look like to me all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry about that, boys, if you don't like it, but you know, haters gonna hate and all that, eh? It's mad. Haters gonna hate. It's good fun.
Yeah, I like to try to get to a point of understanding where they're coming from and why they're coming from that spot, you know. But you got to be careful. You got to be careful because it's like you said, which I think I will adopt. Passers-by will not know which of you is the idiot because you're both arguing.
Yeah. But you see, this is the thing. It's like, you know, you've been very, very diplomatic about it. So, you know, I caused a little bit of trouble back with Richard, and it was out of respect to you that I backed off, right? When I heard that silly story about the Iraqis and all that, did that. And then I jumped on well, you said you invented Hubbard, so I'm going to have you for that instead, right? And then it's like, you should show me respect. And I'm like, dude, come on, man. You know, it's just a joke. Yeah. You know, like, come on. Like, and again, I don't want to knock the guy because his accolades. Again, it's really bizarre because it's like, dude, you enough. Like, yeah, for the go-to guy. Like, for what Bruce Lee did day to day, wicked, man. I'm impressed. Like, looks pretty autistic to me, but do you know what? Fair play, mate. Yeah, it looks all right, but it's like there's a market for it. It's unreal. but it's the knocking. Like that again, it's the knocking, it's the passive aggressive, it's the alluding to stuff where I'd rather just be honest and go, listen, so what do you think I'm like? And I go, you're full of shit, mate. And he go, really? Well, I don't think so. And I went, okay.
Yeah.
But you just seem to be full of shit.
Yeah. I tried to. He hit the wrong button. I was just going to tell him that I tried to identify the source of some of these people's what can we call it? What's the medical term? Okay. Uh-oh.
Okay. Did that bit come in? I just did that. Damn you, Richard Torres. I think he's messing with our feed. Either that or it's Zuckerberg. Yeah.
So
carry on.
I think that what happened is some people feel like Dan Inosanto betrayed Bruce Lee, right? By going beyond, because it's almost like if, let's say that I was a student of Mike Shreve, the drummer from Santana, right? Or let's say I was a student of Jose Chipito Arias, right? The timbalero from Santana. And then I went and studied with somebody else.
Yeah.
How dare you? You got platinum. You didn't even get gold. You got platinum, right? But you dared to go study with somebody. And I'm like, but yeah, because they said it's a good idea to look around.
Well, Dwight, this is the thing, right? You've hit on a problem, which is time immemorial of martial arts, right? A guy trains with somebody, he goes to somebody else. Guess what he has to do? He has to immediately, it's a Greek tragedy, right? You trained with somebody, you go somewhere else. Guess what? I have to kill the father to become the man. And what you do is, the guy I was training with, I wasted all that time. No, you didn't. He just showed you a different path. He showed you another path. Was it as good? Maybe. Wasn't it as good? Maybe not. Guess what? Was it a waste of time? Were you sitting on the couch eating Cheetos? If you were, then it was a waste of time. Unless you like sitting on the couch and eating Cheetos, then guess what? I applaud you, right? So the thing with Bruce, it's funny you said this, right? So did he? Maybe. What I really think their problem is this, is first of all, Bruce died. That pissed them off, right? He should have carried on living because he was bigger than life. You know, it's, no one was ever faster than Bruce Lee. And I'm like, I think fucking Usain Bolt was, mate. And he's like, well, no one hit harder than him. And I went, I don't know. I think Mike Tyson might have. And then they're like, and you're like, look, sorry, he was a 5'7" Chinese dude. He was good and he was amazing and he was a hero of yours when you were a kid. Now, Dwight, I hate to break this to you. Michael Jackson was a hero of mine when I was a kid. Bill Cosby was a hero of mine when he was a kid. But guess what? Shit. They did shit. You know? Oh dear. Right? And I'm not saying that Bruce Lee did that, but what I'm saying is, it goes back to what we said at the start. Bruce had the decency as a cultural icon to die early enough. So guess what? The mythos is bookended.
Right. Yeah.
He was Cha-Cha champion. Boom. Enter the Dragon a month after he dies. That's it. And then after that, what it is, there's a few things. And I've really spent a lot of time thinking about this. Some of it is the guys who have actually met Dan Inosanto, their issue with Dan is this. They see greatness and they can't handle it, right? That's it, right? All of us, we look at it and we go, there's aspects of that we aspire to, but that's a genius. And that's not, we're not part of a cult. Literally, it's like to be part of the Inosanto program costs peanuts. You know what I mean? There's nothing put on you apart from, it would be good if I could see you 20 hours a year. That's it. That's all that's put on you, right? So you've got that. So you've got that part. And then the other part that I really think irks a lot of them is because when they see that greatness, it reaffirms just how ungreat they are. And as he's got older, this is the thing, he's booked the trend of aging. Yeah, he hasn't become bitter. He hasn't become twisted. He hasn't become stiff. If anything, you know, the once fluid man, really? It's like Rick Fay says, he moves like a 25-year-old if we could find a 25-year-old that moved that well. That's the thing, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's like, me personally, I'm like, I know why you're pissed off with me, because my hero's better than your hero. How's that? Yeah. And then again, it's, you know, there's certain aspects of the way that, with me, it's the way he thinks, the way he promotes us all to do our own thing, allows it, like, it's like, I've heard this a few times, like, yeah, Guro Dan's almost like a father figure to a lot of us, right? To a lot of us. And he's the ultimate cool father figure, because he's like, go off, do your thing. If it works out, great. And I know it sounds really biblical when I say this, but it is the prodigal son thing. Go off there, do your cool thing. If it doesn't work out, then okay. But there's always a place for us. If it does work out, I hope you're really happy where you end up. And it's really funny, because we look at it, we can look at people like, you know, you look at Vunak, you look at Paul Vunak, and then like he's wildly different to, say, Rick Fay, to David Hatch, to you, to Eric Paulson, to Greg Nelson, to these, like, you know, these elder statesmen, from my opinion, guys who have been there from the early days, who are banging it out. And it's like, Dwight, you know, I'm going to put it on you now on this. How many of your contemporaries do you know from school or from high school or from growing up?
You mean that I'm still in touch with?
Still in touch with?
There's about 5 of them.
How vital are they? How well do they move? How happy are they in life? How inquisitive are they? And this, by the way, isn't a judgment call. It's just, guess what? The commonality that we all seem to have is they're like, you're what? You're 55, Mick. You've got those Marty McFly trainers, those Nikes that, you know, you've got the app where you can tighten them. Why have you got them? Because I'm a cool kid. Yeah, but you're 55, Mick. Why have you got those? Because I'm a cool kid. I was a cool kid once, and I'm always going to be a cool kid. Yeah. And that's the thing. You know, that's the one thing that Dan Inosanto's always promoted. And then, you know, it's that classic. Yeah, I don't know if you ever remember, a guy said it to him once, and he said it as an insult. I don't know who said it, but Rick Fay told me this. And this guy turned around and he says, you know what the problem is, Danny? He says, all your guys are different. And Guro Dan says, oh, thank you. And he went, no. And he went, no. It's not supposed to be a compliment. Right. It's like, you talk all the same thing, but they're all doing it differently. Yeah. And then Guro was like, yeah, but we're all different.
Right. Because he taught,
how it should be.
He embodies and passed on independence. And that's what they can't stand. That's what his detractors can't stand. It's like, but you were with Bruce. Why would you go beyond? Why would you give? And no matter how many times I try to explain to them, well, there was the thing about not being commercial. And so there was the idea of, you know what? Billy Brown told me this just the other day. That because we got to talking about language and the Cajun drawl and Cajun language and what have you. And he was telling me that when he first met Inosano says, oh, well, you should check your lineage because you probably have Filipino or Indonesian somewhere in your lineage. Years later, Billy discovers there's an Indonesian connection in his lineage, right? So he's like, Inosano is always right. But I was thinking about that, right? I was thinking about that because he was telling us a couple of weeks ago in LA. He was telling us a story about how in school they were talking about how savage the Filipinos were. And so he went home and told his dad that he didn't want to be Filipino anymore. Right?
Wow.
Because the Filipinos were such savages and what have you. But then imagine what a shock it is for him to then learn more of the true history of Filipinos. And now, because you trained martial arts with a guy who became posthumously an international superstar, you should go, damn, these Filipinos, my heritage is awesome. But you know what? I trained with Bruce Lee, so I can't really pay any attention to that.
Well, do you know what, Dwight? This is the thing, right? I'm literally right down on the battery on my iPad. So this is going to be my parting shot. So
Okay.
you guys are going to love this, right? This is a quote from it was a story that was told to me by Rick Young, right? And we were talking about Kali versus Jeet Kune, and I want to attribute it to Rick because he told me it and it blew my mind. And I said to him, Rick, what's the difference between Jeet Kune and Kali? And Rick said, easy. He goes, Jeet Kune is the combined knowledge. So it's the cumulative knowledge of a 32-year-old man who had a couple of fights and dabbled in a few different martial arts, but was a very good philosopher and a physical specimen. Kali is the combined knowledge of thousands of years and tens of thousands of real-time, real-life confrontations. He goes, just if you listen to it like that, I'm sorry, but I'm going to go to Kali every day of the week. Because guess what? I said before and I'll say it again. By the way, this isn't Rick Young. This is Mick Tully now talking. Guess I know a couple of 32-year-olds and I wouldn't trust them with my car for the weekend. Yeah, I'm like, really? Okay. And again, it's the whole, Dwight, it's like, I just don't get it. It's not like a false pity thing or anything. It is the God's honest truth. Every now and again, I go on Facebook. Well, I'm on there all the time, aren't I? Yes. The algorithm's got me, right? But it's like, this. I go on it and I take pot shots at a few guys just because they take themselves so seriously. But I really feel sorry for them because they just don't see what we see. Mm-hmm. They don't get what we get. And like I always laugh and I always go, why aren't you using that BUG and Dumtech in the UFC? Chicks, girls, hair, shampoo commercials. You guys could do really well. Yeah, well, I only train for the street, and I'm like, I think the UFC will let you in there. Why aren't you doing it? And it's quite tragic, really, because to see grown men still embracing the reasons why, I don't know about you, but why I got into martial arts. I got into martial arts because I was a scared and frightened young man, right? And then I realized that I'd never be able to overwrite the fear. I just tried to embrace the fear and realize that I was always going to shit myself every single time. I drove to jiu-jitsu tonight at 55 years of age as a black belt, and as I pulled into the car park, I had that, you know, I'm going to do the Billy Connolly line, you know, as you get older, the problem about getting older is you can't even trust a fart anymore, right? So I drive in and I go, I check, I'm like, oh, I'm okay. But I'm still scared.
Yeah.
But, you know, the beauty of that is, man, you're still alive, man. You know what I mean? It's like every day above ground is a bonus. And I look at these guys and you're like, and you guys want to trade this for what? Living in pre-1973? Man, this is, you know, this is tragic shit. For guys your age, this is really tragic shit. And it's like, why? You know, it's unreal. But I'm really conscious of the fact that, you know, those lithium batteries, man, I'll tell you what, hey, Dwight, whoever did my iPad, I must have had one of those lazy Chinese kids. Work harder, child. Yeah. He must have took a break or jumped into the suicide net or something. I don't know what Apple do these days. But anyway, it's always a pleasure to see you, Dwight. You're looking well. And Irie, me brethren, that isn't cultural appropriation, is it? That's
culture. That's cultural appreciation.
Brother, you have to remember this, right? You got to remember the Irish and all the boys, like even the small island boys, me and a couple of the Barbadians, man, I hang out with some of them fellas, right?
Yeah.
But you got to remember, there's that kinship. That's the one thing, and I'll go on this. The beauty of what Guru's given us is that brotherhood where we turn around and it's like,
there you go.
Hey man, I dropped the lapu on a couple of the I got a couple of Filipino guys training with me, and I'm like, that guy doing jiu-jitsu. And I'm like, why are you guys doing jiu-jitsu with me, man? You should be doing the lapu, man. And they're like, what? I said, look, I had to teach Filipino dudes about lapu. And I went, they killed Magellan. Magellan, half of the world speaks Spanish because of Magellan. I said, if you want to come and do jiu-jitsu with me, I said, you guys are in. I tell you, I'll put the rattan stick on your head. Yeah. The brotherhood and the kinship and the fellowship. Yeah, that's the one thing. And guess what? As I said, it's tragic, but those guys don't have any of that.
Yeah, Tim was talking about that just the other day. You're right.
This is what it's. This is, and you know, we're all connected. And COVID made us really understand the power of that.
All right. So, famous last words. That's the end of Mick's iPad. So that's the end of me for today as well. You guys know the deal. Follow me on Twitter at Dwight Woods and on Instagram at Dwight D Woods. And at paypal.me/unifiedma Miami, paypal.me/unifiedma Miami. You can pick up the raw but edited version of the Jeet Kune Journey Volume 1. You can also, if you're over on the YouTube, you can just click the join button there. You should subscribe also, of course, and comment, but click the join button there and you can support the show that way. And that's it. You guys have a great weekend. I am pretty much on the mend. I should be in the park conducting classes tomorrow. So everything should be good from here on in. And so have a great weekend. This is Dwight Woods of Jeet Kune Rebels signing off. You guys take care. Talk soon.